Hey, good afternoon and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today for this action-packed presentation on Godlan CPM powered by Prophix. I'm joined today with Chris Porter. Chris is with Prophix. He's an account manager based out of the Toronto area. And so, Chris, say hello to our audience here for just a moment.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Very good. So, Chris, thanks. And let's take a look at our first slide here as we run through the deck. So, customers have come to us, and we've been meeting with a number of folks out in the field. And we've been hearing this resounding requirement for additional reporting capabilities. Complex business is becoming a lot more complex today. The need to protect information, need to have secured access to more data. Customers are having to start working on budgets faster and forecast more often. I recall back when I was in business, we used to take a forecasting process, and it was this, I wouldn't call it this once-a-year event. And what we're finding is today is companies really have to get much more into that continuous rolling forecast process, and some real drivers for that area as well. Along with complexity, the need to have collaboration, bringing all the aspects of the organization together. You may find that it's engineering people, purchasing people, manufacturing people, your salespeople, bringing them all together because no one person, no one group really has the information necessarily to provide that business process, that business planning information. So really bringing that collaboration capability forward at this point. And also with the complexity, the need to really make sure everything is ticked and tacked as you go through the processes here. It is too risky and too important not to be able to have something that is very process-oriented. As a matter of fact, a lot of our customers are actually things like ISO certified. And believe it or not, we're finding that even some of those certifications can be driven back to actually having solid financial planning processes. So really making sure that everything is driven by that process, driven by that program oriented approach to CPM today. Chris, if you can grab the next slide here. So Chris, tell us a little bit about Prophix CPM versus ERP. We have a lot of customers that say, hey, I've got an ERP system, it's got data in it. What's different about CPM here? What's the uniqueness between CPM and what's its differentiator?
So the CPM is it's kind of the extension of your ERP, and so the ERP and the technology your ERPs are built on is a relational technology. So it's a flat structure. It's really meant for housing mass amounts of transactions, and so an ERP system, as a result of its technology, is not suited towards doing reporting and planning. That functionality is in there. But everyone knows it's very cumbersome to use, it's very cumbersome to maintain, it's not user-friendly, and it doesn't really facilitate the planning process. And so the ERP is ultimately your source for all the data that eventually would go into a CPM application, which is intended for budgeting and reporting and consolidations and dashboards and scorecards. The technology that CPM is built on and Prophix that is built on is called an OLAP technology, or a lot of people are familiar with cube technology. And so it's built on structure, it's built on process, and so that type of a technology is more geared towards and intended to be used for the purpose of planning, reporting, forecasting, consolidations, and so on. And so ultimately, CPM extends the value and makes getting your data out of your ERP or your CRM or your other databases easier and much more simpler. And so we enable customers to be able to do reporting and planning independently without the use of technical resources or IT. And so that's really the differentiator between what CPM is and what just your classic reporting tool is. And so CPM extends your data and uses it for the purpose of budgeting, reporting, and forecasting.
So, and Chris, you mentioned that that you're built on the an OLAP environment here. So really, between ERP and CPM, just right from the root of the technology difference, ERP is built as a transactional system, high-speed transactions, being able to bring in huge amounts of information into into a repository at that point, and but really it really lacks that ability to pull data out in a very effective way, and that's what CPM, based on its base architecture, sounds like can really bring to the table here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what Prophix really allows organizations to do is to go through a maturity of CPM in a very natural and a very organic way. And so all the different functionality you're seeing here on the slide is available through Prophix Corporate Performance Management. Our unique value proposition to the marketplace is that you get every piece of functionality in every module right from the beginning. And so we do this because we want customers to grow within the application. We want them to show return on investment to their stakeholders in the application. We don't want them to be hindered by module and software cost. However, customers will typically implement areas in a phased approach, kind of like you're seeing on here. And this is actually a chart that was published by Gartner in a maturity model. And so Prophix allows organizations to get to a transformative enterprise level usage of CPM without the additional software cost over the time period that they do that. So customers will initially start off using it for financial budgeting and reporting, and progressively over time use it for forecasting, analysis, operational planning, dashboards and scorecards, and many other functions within their business. And so the value that we bring to the companies that use Prophix is that they can really grow within the application and continue year after year to see return on investment in additional use cases for Prophix within their organization. And
thanks, Chris. And I'm going to bring up the next question here, and this actually brings up probably some bad memories of my history, because I was an Excel lover over time. And back when I was in the manufacturer, Excel was king. And you think about that today, and we still run into this, that a lot of companies out there, they run their financials, heck, they run the whole business oftentimes on Excel. And just to kind of clarify here, I think from what I've seen of Prophix, and Chris, I'll let you confirm this, that if you took a look at what Excel was back in the day here, you built very complex formulas in Excel to do your roll-ups, and those might be, right starting from budgeting, and you'd create your consolidation sheets. So you really, were a formula wizard. Took an awful lot of time, and what we were finding is, as the business started to change, if you started changing accounts, if you started adding a new entity, the errors just started to propagate throughout these Excel spreadsheets, and they started to show their age very quickly. Being able to have things like version control that, I remember used to sending out Excel budgeting spreadsheets, and heck, I'd get stuff coming back that, from my engineering, director of engineering, and heck, it was last year's spreadsheet where he had to kind of cut and pasted some stuff in, and the data integrity just fell completely apart. And by the time we got done with this, into our planning process, the confidence that data was correct was really, really marginal at the point. And we were getting back into that multi-user accessibility as well. That because what we did is we made 25 copies of the spreadsheet and sent them out. It really wasn't multi-user. It was a bunch of single-user spreadsheets that we try to glue back together. And the bottom line, what I used to see was the lack of ownership and accountability. And today, with the need to collaborate in real time, and in order to do this in a continuous phase versus this yearly event, Excel really kind of hit the skids pretty darn quickly. Tell me a little bit about, so how does Prophix CPM really kick this up a notch here?
Yeah, so Prophix really eliminates and breaks down the barriers associated with cumbersome Excel spreadsheets. And so everything from just simply the use and the ease of use and the built-in tools to allow you to do planning and forecasting and reporting, eliminating the need to write formulas to add up all the data. With Prophix being built on a cube, you build hierarchies centrally. So when you go to report, those hierarchies are already put together, whether it's the accounts, whether it's your unit codes or your customers or your products, whatever it might be, they're already put together, and so you're not building formulas. Moreover, with our integration to Sightline and to all databases, of which there's a little over 200, Prophix is consistently monitoring the databases for new IDs, new codes that then got brought into the hierarchy. And so what that means is you can reduce all that time you spend and eliminate that time you spend on a monthly basis. Simply just adding rows, updating spreadsheets, updating formulas, you can eliminate all of that. And so if you can imagine all the time that you would have back because you don't need to perform account maintenance, because you don't need to ensure links between spreadsheets are maintained. If you can imagine the amount of value and increased value you can bring to your organization as a result of eliminating that, that is the return on investment that Prophix provides to its users. And so there is technology out there that is built to do budgeting and reporting, and that is what Prophix is. And so when you realize that that is available, you start to kind of really realize and have an epiphany that, I can bring more value to my organization. My finance team can bring more value to my organization because they're spending more of their time on value-added tasks as opposed to just, going through the regular churn of budgeting and reporting all the time. So that's really kind of what the differentiator is and the business case for Prophix. And you can truly measure return on investment through the time and value that you're bringing to your organization as a result of using it.
Yeah, definitely, and well, and you mentioned change here. Going from the legacy of an Excel to a CPM, and I've heard some people say, boy, CPM, it sounds like big iron. It sounds like these are big, expensive projects. And it's I always thought about it as there's a lot of risk involved in that, and it sounds like today that really. And you covered this with a lot of the lifecycle model there with Gartner, is being able to start taking this into a very flexible model, being able to make these, make it a much more risk-free choice to go with CPM, and therefore, you're getting those benefits of getting the data reliability, getting the collaboration, without the risk of rolling out this big project and just hoping and holding your breath. So it sounds like maybe you could touch on a little bit of that of how easy it is to get into a CPM solution today, and Prophix really drives that to the point here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so with our solution, like we showed earlier, we have all this functionality, but we really do take a phased approach. And so we'll start off with your core financial reporting and budgeting processes, and from there, the beauty of it is that you can then build and bring in other data sets that are ultimately subsets of either your P&L, your balance sheet, and because that data is now in Prophix, it's all connected together. And so when a user sees a line item on a P&L, and it might be revenue, they can actually drill into, instantaneously with their mouse, all of the underlying detail, whether it's at a customer level, at a product level, number of units sold, by price, by cost. And so we connect the data together. And so you can start off very simple with that starter pack, financial reporting and budgeting. In a matter of only a couple of weeks, you'll have all of that up and running, go live, and your company can begin reaping the benefits and begin to see the return on investment. And so that's the difference with Prophix, is you can really take a proper phased approach, and you can bite off what you can chew. And over time, you'll gain momentum within your organization to implement other areas. And the nice part about it is like I said, you're not implementing those areas with big software price tags, but rather you own the entire suite of functionality, which is increasingly rare in software today. So as a part of the agenda, we're going to jump into a demonstration. First and foremost, we're going to talk about how Prophix automates everything from your budgeting to your reporting to your operational planning, consolidations. You may not get through everything today on the webinar, but do reach out to the Godlan team afterwards to get a follow-up and a tailored demo. So we're going to kind of go through as much as we can today and show you the product. But as a starting point for where we typically start off is we really talk about usability. We really talk about being able to deploy this to an end user base that wants to use it, that can understand how to use it. And so what you'll see here in the demonstration today is that everything we do is simply just driven by the click of your mouse. There's not a single bit of syntax or formulas or special, coding that we have to teach users to do. More importantly, you don't even have to teach the administrator to do any of that. Our goal in developing Prophix over the last 28 years has been to develop an application that finance teams and business users can maintain and administer. And so we strip away that typical time that IT typically has to spend on applications, and we present you with an application that you can really drive and that you can really own. And so when users log into Prophix, the first thing we really want them to see is something that is visually stimulating. It's something that you're going to put this information right in front of them every single day when they log into the application. And so first and foremost here we have a dashboard. And so the dashboards in Prophix are simply just configured through widgets. It's really nice, really easy to use. And so if you put together a widget on your phone or something like that, you can really configure a dashboard really quickly in Prophix, which is nice. So every component of Prophix that I log into, whether it's a dashboard, a report, a template, it's all configured towards my security profile. But as somebody who may have created this or published this, that doesn't mean extra work on their end. So if you think about the amount of time that you might spend or your team might spend simply just creating additional versions of a report or a template in order to emulate, or tailor to a user's security, that's one of the big things you can measure when developing the business case for purchasing Prophix, is the amount of time you'll simply just save as a result of Prophix doing all the work to emulate the security. And so when I see this, I only see the products, I only see the customers, I only see the departments, I only see the data specific to me. And so you can create what we call master templates or master reports and then distribute those up to the users. And so this dashboard is a really great tool because I can give people not just financial KPIs, but I can also give them the products they're responsible for, the customers they're responsible for. And so this is really emulating the ability of Prophix to integrate to Sightline or integrate to any number of your databases and bring that data into a single solution. And so when I see this dashboard, one thing that really stands out to me is the OpEx variance dashboard. And so this is showing actual versus. So I'm in charge of marketing. I see this red square here, and so this red square is an indication that there's something that's probably off on the variance. Now every component of the dashboard is clickable, it's actionable, and so I can double click on the marketing and it brings me into a report. This report is linked to that part of the dashboard, so I can now go into an underlying report to understand that visual depiction of the data further. So in here, I have conditional formatting set up such that there's red when it's a variance over 10%. So I can see that that's pretty obvious. I can see that there's a visual depiction of the data up here as well. But again, when I open this report from the dashboard, I'm only presented with the departments that I'm the owner of. And so somebody else might log into this who's a VP of sales. They'll see the sales departments. Someone logs in that's the VP or the HR manager, they'll only see the departments they have access to. But again, from the publishing and from the creation of this report, they only had to create it once. So that's really a big time saver when it comes to creating new reports and templates. When I see that there's $26,000 variance, a lot of organizations present users with this type of report, but the analysis begins and ends at this report because users don't have the ability to go into transactions or to slice and dice the data. We are enabling your users to do all of that. And so I can click on the drop-down menu here. I can go through my 3 departments: product, content, and field marketing. I could also go all the way up to total marketing here. Now, I may see this 72,000. I say, well, you know, that's pretty far off. I can take a couple of different approaches to finding more information about that. So through our integration to Sightline, we can actually right-click on any actuals coming from the database and go to a drill across choice. And so drill across enables me to see all of the detailed transactions line by line that are hitting the Sightline database. And so oftentimes this is a question finance gets or IT gets, that, you know, what are all the different transactions that are coming into that report? Well, in real time, I can see all of those transactions right at a complete detailed level. And to take it a step further, if you guys have a document imaging system that's integrated into Sightline, we can actually see those different invoices broken out line by line by line, which is really great too, because a lot of organizations or users ask for this type of detail, but they just don't have the ability or the knowledge of how to get to it. And so we're enabling the users to do their own analysis on the data that they're accountable for. So this is just one way. So we're at the top level of travel costs here. So we're actually getting transactions for different accounts, also for all the different departments. So you don't have to be at the lowest level of your roll-up structure to see the transactions, which is really nice. Now the other avenue that a lot of users will go down is they want to pivot, they want to slice and dice the data. And so in this report, I can click through the different departments here, but what I might want to do is to be able to slice and dice, click and drag, and see these departments pivoted on travel costs. And so Prophix enables all the users to be able to right-click on the data and go to the Analyze app. The Analyze application will then open up a free-form tool which will allow the user to now slice and dice, click and drag, and analyze the data further as they please. And so we've done a really good job to make this interface so intuitive that the users know immediately how to drill into the lower level of the hierarchy. And so all I have to do here is just double click on travel costs, and it opens up all the different accounts that roll up to travel costs. And so travel costs is what we would call like a level 2 in the hierarchy. And so all of these accounts here roll up into travel cost. I don't have to create a formula because, again, the technology that this is built on hierarchies. And so that's what enables us to present somebody with a high-level report, but from that report they can drill into the underlying detail in the lower-level accounts. Now, like I said, my goal or my ask was to be able to see my departments up here in the drop-down pivoted on my travel costs. And so now that I've determined that airfare is the count that makes up the majority of that travel cost, I can then take organizations, click and drag, and pivot them onto the account airfare. So by doing that, I can instantly see that product marketing department was the main culprit behind the variance, and so I can see that that's the main detail. Again, at this level, I can also run the drill across to see the transactions again. You know, there's less transactions because we've drilled down into a lower level, so it's a little bit more digestible. And again, I see that $15,000 transaction there, so it's pretty clear that that transaction was the main culprit. It's kind of the outlier in the transactions that month. And so what I can request the user to have to do is, you know, on the conditional formatting, anytime there's a variance over, let's say 10%, I can request that they come in and do a comment. And so I can put in a comment here on the variance to say that there's an unbudgeted 15K trip. So I can put that in there, and in addition to the text commentary, I can add in a file as well. And so that file I can add into based on the invoices that I've put in here, and so I can add that invoice into the commentary as well, and such that when someone sees the commentary, they can actually see the actual invoice that made up the majority of that variance as well. All of this commentary, the beauty of it is, it's stored in Prophix. It's not stored in templates by template like you would in Excel. So when you do your variance, you have to make sure you copy that exact cell. That's the beauty of this, is that this level of detail and the added features like commentary are stored in the system. So the next time someone navigates to this figure here, that will be there, which is really, really nice. It makes sure things are controlled and it's cohesive. Now, the other thing here is that on the plan, I require that my users plan out airfare transaction by transaction or at a line item detail level. And so in the case where organizations are making sure people are planning out their airfare or their trips on a trip-by-trip basis, in this case there's a blue triangle. And so I can look into this blue triangle and see exactly all of the different transactions that were budgeted when they created the original budget. And so I can go into the line item details here. I can see all of the individual transactions that were budgeted here, and I can see all the different information. And so it's pretty clear there wasn't a $15,000 trip budgeted in January, and so it's obvious that that was out of the budget. So this is really, keeping this data together, keeping this level of detail together is really, really important. And so Prophix keeps it all together and controlled. So in this same type of environment, this is where you can create your own ad hoc reports, and the method to doing so is actually quite simple. So we make the layout, again, all mouse-driven, all click-by-click driven. And so if I wanted to create a completely different layout here in the report, all I simply have to do is just move the different fields around and then put my report together. And so if my requirement was to build a report that showed all of our different gross revenue broken out by department, all I simply have to do is just click the organization up into the pages or the drop downs, bring my accounts down into the rows, and like I said, because everything is in a hierarchy format and it's structured, I don't have to know all of the different roll-up structures. Everything is already pre-configured, it's already all put together, which is really nice. And so here I can then select all the different lines of revenue followed by gross sales, which is the total, without having to write a single formula. So if you think about the issues that organizations have as a result of that, this is something Prophix can really help with. So now that I've put that together, I can click OK, and I can see all the data already all put together for me. And so this really allows you to enable your users to build their own reports and to come up with their own data on the fly. So this is just the ad hoc report writer. When you want to build your own formatted reports, the beauty of it is that we have the template studio, which allows you to build reports based on the same interface, but it allows you to bring in your own formatting. And the formatting is exactly like the formatting in Excel, which is really, really nice. But again, the difference is you're building it based on the structures that are already put together in the different models, in the different cubes. And so it's the same interface, which is really nice, whether you're building an ad hoc report or you're building a formatted report. So that largely covers off the portion that we wanted to go through relating to reporting. And so the next portion we want to shift gears into, and this is really where performance management continues on, and this is where typical reporting in BI kind of ends, is at the reporting phase. What Prophix allows you to do beyond your typical reporting in BI application is planning and forecasting, all within the same system. So like we saw there, we saw some plan figures, and so those plan figures can be put together in Prophix. As Warren mentioned, a lot of organizations have a collaborative budget. So people are sending out spreadsheets, they're compiling them together, they're making sure things are linked. All of that is completely taken away, and we make that process much more efficient through our workflow tool. And so workflow allows you to plan out all the different components of your budgeting process into a single, effectively a single project plan, which allows you to plan out all the different areas of your organization. And so we can have our OpEx planning process, we have our sales planning, we have all the different areas that you do in your planning, but it's all put together task by task, user by user, template by template. And so as the cycle is going through and you're planning out the business, you can understand where all of the different components of your planning process are, and you can ultimately say to the stakeholders, these are the people who we're waiting on, these are the tasks that are waiting for approval. And so in real time, you know the whole process of your planning process in the organization. And so these two tasks here are actually assigned to me. And so when they get assigned to you, you immediately receive a notification in your inbox that you have a task. And in that notification, there will be a hyperlink which will bring you into Prophix to do your planning. And so when I come into Prophix and I go to the Home tab, I can see all of the different tasks that have been assigned to me. And so the two tasks I'm going to walk you through today are typical OPEX planning, and then we also have a section called detailed planning, which will allow you to plan below the ledger for things like payroll, things like sales, operations, CapEx, and so on. And so these tasks are always right at the top of my screen. And so I have a department OPEX task, so does the finance team, so does the sales team, all the different areas of the business. But when I click on that task, I only receive, again, the departments I have access to. So similar to that variance report, I'm only seeing the marketing department. But again, when it comes to building these templates, the finance team or whoever builds them doesn't have to create multiple iterations because of the security of the system. And so it's quite nice this way. And so when I open this report, it allows me to then begin planning in a very familiar format. So if you're using Excel present day, you can build the same formatting, which is really nice. The users like to embrace that. And so here in the first column, I have a forecast 9+3. And so right then and there, I can see where we're trending towards in the coming year. And so when I go through and plan out the different components of it, I can plan it month by month, quarter by quarter. I can even plan it at an annual level. So, I'll go through, I'll plan out all the different components. You can do it month by month. All the things are going to update. So, there's no formulas in here. It's just following the hierarchy. So as I make these changes here and I input different numbers, these numbers update automatically. So like I said, gone are the days where you're going to have to make sure things are linked together. The system follows the hierarchy structure, which therefore you can have anybody planning anything in real time, and you can see everything consolidating. So you don't have to wait for a long consolidation process at the end of it all. So I can also plan not just at the monthly level, and so right here, when I want to plan out at an annual level, I can do so. So if I put in $80,000 here, Prophix prompts me now, because I'm at the annual level, with 4 native spreading options. And so these spreading options allow me to then take the $80,000 and allocate it to the various months that I'm planning for. So it could be 12 months, 6 months, 18, 24, as many as you'd like. So the 4 native options are spread evenly, spread based on the baseline data, spread based on a predetermined weighting by month, as well as spread based on another piece of data in the system. And so this is where we allow you to then pull data from Sightline, from other databases to use as a means of planning. And so if I decided I wanted to plan out this count based on gross sales or last year's actuals, all I simply have to do is just choose those combinations here. And so from here, if I wanted to choose gross sales, I would just go into the accounts, click down into the net income hierarchy, which has my gross sales, drag it over, and then I'll choose my sales department because I'm not a sales department here, so we'll use line of business, which has our sales numbers. And so we can plan out our upcoming year's expenses based on gross sales without even having to have that data in this template. So that's one of the big differences in technology between Prophix and Excel or other systems, is that you can access this data very easily and very quickly. And so I can allocate this $80,000 based on gross sales really easy. And so I can click yes, and it will then allocate the data across to the various months in the system. And so this really allows me to make a more valid, a more usable budget that has rhyme, it has reason, it has validity behind it. Like I said earlier, you can also plan out at a line item level. So in the airfare account, we set it up that it's mandatory to provide line item budget support for the different budget figures in here. So it really allows you to put in controls, but also, like I said, use other data as a means of planning out your business in the year. Also, if there's sections of your P&L or your balance sheet that you do at a driver level, so number of heads times dues and subscriptions rate, that populates my dues and subscriptions account. You can apply the same methodology to things like sales and payroll and other things like that. So the other area I wanted to jump into was the notion that companies don't just plan everything at the ledger level. So they'll plan employee, they'll plan sales by customer, by product. Prophix has a module, which again comes out of the box, called Detailed Planning Manager. And so as you'll see, this section of my OPEX plan is blank. I cannot enter data into it. And that's because this is actually planned out using the Detailed Planning Manager. So when I go back to my home screen, I have a second task, which is assigned to me, called Department Personnel. And so this Department Personnel task allows me to then go into a personnel schedule, and we can integrate to all of your payroll systems, by the way. So all this data can come out of your payroll and into Prophix. Prophix has pre-built and pre-configured earnings, benefits, taxes, raises, commissions, have all these pre-built calculations that you can use, so you don't have to build formulas. And all this data is always integrated in real time back to my financials. And so this really allows organizations to not only reconnect with disconnected, which is typically, salespeople plan at their level, payroll people plan at their level, and then you have to consolidate it. When it's in Prophix, it connects it all together. And so this allows me to plan out all of my different payroll and my employees for the year. And with the click of a button on the update button, I can push this detailed plan into that template, or I can push it back to my financials. And so with just a matter of 2 clicks, all this data can be sent back to my financials. So this really allows you to do real-time consolidation, but also real-time what-if planning and scenario. So you say to yourself, well, what if that new person that I hired in June, what if they start in January? And so I can go back to my detailed plan, I can adjust their start date, and I can push the data back, and I can say, what's my overall cost? How does this affect profitability? And so you can really do proper real-time what-if planning. And so I can see how this then updates, and I can see all of the different changes in real time. And so that module can be applied to, like I said, sales planning, CapEx planning, project planning, employee planning. It's a big, excellent piece of technology that helps you reconnect what's disconnected in your planning process. So the last couple of things we wanted to go through today were the fact that Prophix has not only a desktop or a smart client, but it also enables you to access all of that same data through a web interface. And so with Prophix, should you deploy it on-premise, should you deploy it in the cloud, you have the ability to access it through a web interface, so your users can access it anywhere they go. So this is the exact same data sets. These are the exact same pieces of data. It's a web interface. So if I see that there's a KPI on my dashboard here that says my OPEX variance, I can launch into that and I can say, well, why is there a $285,000 variance on my OPEX? I can see that data. Again, it's the exact same data that we saw earlier, just broken out into a different view. And so the data is the exact same, the layout's the exact same, but it allows your users to access all that data on the fly and on the go. And so the dashboard really allows you to provide your users with the access that they need in a very simple to use interface. And so we have different charts, different KPIs, and like I said, building these dashboards out is literally as simple as just putting together the widgets. And so if you ever put together a widget, either on your phone or on another application that you have on your handheld, it's really quite simple. So we have our KPI badges, we have our charting, we have our favorites. Of course, we have our workflow, which is really important as well. You can put all this together in a really simple to use way without any kind of technical acumen or any kind of technical resources that you might need to have. And so you simply just configure it together and then begin assigning it to the KPIs that have been built in the system by either yourself or your consultants. You put this together very simply. So now that I've put the badge in there, I can begin connecting it to my different KPIs. So if I want to choose days inventory KPI, change the title. I can see all this information. I can put this together, beautiful dashboard, really simply, really easily. So again, we've really focused this application on the end users, on the people who actually use this day to day. And so we really want to enable them to be self-sufficient and to be, the drivers of this application within their organization. Now, the last thing we want to touch on is, I said earlier that Prophix is a tool that can really help you reduce your month-end reporting time. You can truly measure the amount of time it saves you on a monthly basis, just simply updating reports, maintaining reports, creating new reports. Like I said, with Prophix, our integration to Sightline is not just a data integration, but as you add new IDs, as you add new reports, if you add new IDs like an account or a department or a unit code ID, you add this to the system, it automatically gets added to Prophix. And so as those new accounts get added into the system, they get added into the reports. They get added into the templates. So on a monthly basis, every single report is continuously being maintained by the system, by the technology, and therefore you're not having to add rows, maintain links. It really kind of drives a lot of efficiency and increases your time. And so after all of that is updated by the system, you can then put together what we call a report binder. And so report binders allow us to combine multiple reports into a single package and ultimately allow us to send those out to multiple users, and the system takes care of all of the configuring of those reports to each user's security profile. This is something we developed in conjunction with our customer base many years ago when they said one of our biggest time allocations on a monthly basis is putting together these packages because it's cumbersome to do. So we developed this with our customers to allow customers to put multiple reports into a single package to send it out to a distribution list of users. And then when they access it, they get it right to their inbox or right to their mobile, and they can open it up and it's tailored towards them. And so when I open up this package from my inbox, I can see all of the different reports. I can add narrative to it. But at the end of the day, like I said, the lead time to producing this is a matter of seconds because the system is taking care of adding all the rows, adding the new things to the reports and maintaining it for you. And again, like I said, everybody that accesses this will get a different cut of the report. They'll receive a different version of the report. So we can combine everything from financial statements like a monthly balance sheet and income statement all the way down to a dashboard as well. And so it allows you to put this data into a single package very simply and very easily. Lastly, and very lastly, just because we do have some time, I did want to go through some of the various forecasting capabilities as well. And so for a lot of organizations, forecasting is very important. And for our clients, OPEX forecasting, sales forecasting, these are two of the most common things that organizations want to do, but as a result of the time that they spend on other areas like monthly reporting and planning, it's just very cumbersome to try to maintain a lot of this. And so I can put together a forecast very simply by just using a new scenario or version. I dictate the start date and the end date for my actuals. In this case, it would be January through to March. And then I can begin planning month by month, or I can plan it at an annual level as well. And when I do the annual plan, the nice part about it is that it plans it out at a annual level, but subtracts the actuals from the annual plan that's already put in place. So if I do that and I put in 150,000, spread it evenly, it's going to subtract these first months of actuals, which are about $19,000, and then allocate the remaining amounts across to the month. And so we get those dollar figures in there. In addition to this, Prophix has a lot of excellent out-of-the-box tools that can allow you to do mass forecasting. So you want to increase all expense accounts or all dollar value accounts by a certain amount. It allows you to do this really quickly and very easily in the system without a lot of work. And so I can build this out together by myself. using a tool called InfoFlex. And so InfoFlex is a process that I can call up, and I can walk through the wizard in order to forecast out a bunch of different areas of my business in a matter of seconds. And so I'm going to choose the scenarios process. We have a couple different examples set up here, but the InfoFlex is an amazing tool that allows you to plan and forecast mass amounts of data, but forecast it at the detailed level. So even though you're forecasting, you don't necessarily have to give up the fact that, well, normally it would take me a long time to forecast every account. Well, in Prophix, you can simply just do this in a matter of seconds. And so I can choose all of my operating expense accounts by just, again, opening up the account list. I could either choose them one by one, or I could choose all of them using the function called leaf descendants, and so I could choose it that way. Then I'll choose the time periods that I want to forecast. Again, I'll choose the different months here, quarters 2, 3, and 4. I'll then choose the currency. I'll then choose the various departments. So I chose my marketing departments because those are the ones that I have to forecast. And then I'll choose simply the original plan version, because that's where the data currently resides. So I want to take my original plan, and I'm going to forecast into forecast version 2. And so there's a separate list of forecasts that I choose for that. Then lastly, I choose my data transformation. So this can be an increase by a percentage, a decrease, an increase by an absolute amount, or a multiplication. So in this case, I'm going to choose an increase of just 4%. And so I'll choose that information there, and I'll choose 4. So once I've done that, I can run the process, and it's going to forecast my entire OPEX plan at an account by account, department by department, unit code by unit code level in a matter of seconds. And so what it allows you to do is forecast in a mass way, but still have an apples-to-apples comparison between your actuals, which are at a low level, and your plan, which also now is at a low level as well. So I can go back into this template. I can refresh the template and see how that increase of 4% now. So we've increased it from 4%, which is a little bit down from the original forecast. I can see how these things are changing the data. I can see what it does to my overall annualized OPEX plan. I can see all of these numbers just broken out very simply and very easily. And so forecasting is something that we've built in through a lot of great wizards and tools. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to build formulas, but rather we have these tools that, again, we built together, with our customer base to take their processes and make them native in the solution. So that largely concludes my portion of today's webinar. And so I'll shift it back to Warren to just wrap it up. And if you have any questions, please do encourage you to use the chat window or the questions window in the GoToWebinar, and we'll be happy to answer those.
Very good, Chris. Thank you very much. And as Chris said, please submit your questions here into the chat window. And Chris, I actually do have a couple that have come up here. And I'll just paraphrase what this gentleman was asking here. He said, we have multiple locations, but we also then do some shared services such as engineering. Does the consolidation function allow us to basically do splits across those shared services?
Yeah, so you can definitely do that type of splits or planning or allocations. And so one of the key examples I could pull up actually is where organizations do shared services allocations, and because you can load in things like headcount, because you can load in things like FTEs or utilization, it's quite common that the information technology or finance budgets on shared services, they'll plan them out for all the different departments. So in this case, I could choose all of my marketing departments here and then plan out at an annual level all of the different allocations or shared services. So I can choose to plan out $550,000 in shared services allocate it evenly across the month, but when I get to allocating it down to my departments, so now I'm being prompted to allocate it to all the different business units. This is where I could choose that FTE or that headcount or that driver account. As you can see, we have many of them, from FTE to units produced to utilization. I can choose FTE and then utilize that as my means of then planning it and spreading it down to the individual months, as well as to the individual departments. And so now I've allocated that out to the 3 departments that roll up the product marketing. So you can definitely do that type of planning as a result of that native functionality there, where you allocate costs of the shared services departments to either different business units. We see a lot of manufacturing clients will allocate costs to production lines based on utilization or hours. So as long as you have that data in Prophix, which is really simple to get to, you can use it. And so that's our goal, is to be able to get that information so it's usable for your organization.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Another question that just came in here, it says, what other ERP systems have you linked with? And in addition to Sightline, which is what Godlan brings as a turnkey integration to the ERP Sightline, Chris, going to give me an idea of some of the other systems that you've worked with as well.
Yeah, so we have a little over 200 integrations built out, and so Sightline is one of them. We can also integrate to a fairly large number of payroll systems, whether it's ADP or Ceridian. We could also integrate to all the CRM systems that are out there. Any ODBC compatible database Prophix can integrate to as a result of its architecture. So we're consistently integrating to new systems, documenting that in our knowledge base so that our customers and our partners can use it for their other customers.
Excellent. So it sounds like really you can, we'll call it an information consolidation as well. If a customer has a separate CRM or a separate payroll system separate from their ERP system, you can still bring all of the data technically consolidated into Prophix, correct?
That's exactly right, yeah.
Perfect, perfect. So, all right, well, with that, thank you very much for everyone who attended today. Chris, thank you very much for coming in. And, if we just kind of recap on this, if you do need additional information, we definitely look forward to speaking with you. Being able to contact